this problem actually is quite serious right now, and actually it is expected to last until the Christmas and actually beyond quite into the 2022. And toy shortages, food shortages, everything is on the table. It's all expected. It's really bad right now. I mean, we are seeing it's partly because of COVID. There have been outbreaks at certain ports around China. And I was reading something recently that around 65 ships are stuck at one of the ports in the US. So it's a pretty big problem right now, particularly in a sector which doesn't have any spare capacity. It's actually always have been under capacity.
So that is fascinating. So why are these ships stuck at these various ports? Why can't they get moving again?
So a couple of reasons. The first reason is that certain areas, certain ports have had an outbreak, and that often leads to them not allowing anyone in. Also, some of these ships are coming from certain regions which are still under the red list, or they have to actually quarantine before they get in, so they are not letting them on here, and that is causing these backlog. Usually, the typical backlog used to be one ship just waiting to get its turn, and now it's under hundreds. It's in hundreds. So COVID is a big reason right now. And the way that it's being managed, that's another reason.
You remember, we all remember that Ever Given that was stuck across the Suez Canal, and people said that was going to cause a flow-on effect. Has that been part of the problem as well?
Yes, certainly, because that kind of created, that alerted the world to the problem. That the problem has always been there, but our supply chains have never been more vulnerable. Well, fragile is the word. They haven't been more fragile before, because that just generates risk is also a perception. It generates a perception among people. So people are not accepting, the marine engineers, the seafarers, they're not accepting contracts without certain certainty. In the past, it was not unusual for them to bring some of them to bring along their families if they were going to nice places. Now they're not doing that because there is no certainty. And if you look at some of the recent reports, some of the current seafarers are staying on the ships. They are not able to get off despite their contracts ending, and they are living in really poor conditions. Some surviving on a loaf of bread a day. They are just not able to do it. They're not getting medical treatments, and that news reaches at the ports in the mainland, that they are not accepting new contracts, and the employers are providing no guarantees. So that has been up, and that has been triggered partly by the Suez Canal disaster started at the Suez Canal.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's a crisis in crews as well. If people are not accepting contracts, and the working conditions are so unacceptable and also so unreliable. So is there any attempt to try and sit down at a global level and try and resolve this?
I think at this point, this situation is really emerging and coming into the mainstream, the spotlight. And I think this actually, as you said, needs a global response. So far, I don't see anything as far as I know. And I think that's what I've also seen, that if trade is the blood of the lifeblood of the international relations, then supply chains surely is the nervous system, and it's not being managed on a global scale. Every country is sort of responding to pandemic and responding to supply chain more locally. They are trying to secure their own region, but actually it needs a global response, and these things need to be talked about more openly on a global scale, particularly because these people are stuck in seas and they are citizens of nowhere right now. So they need that collaboration between governments to actually bail them out of these situations.
Yeah. And when you talk about the flow-on effects to the global supply chain, you're talking food there. We've heard of massive problems with the supply of building supplies. So, how far does this go?
Everything. I mean, around the US Toy Manufacturing Association, they are saying that some of these big manufacturers, they can take some of the hits, but it's going to erode the small and medium-sized ecosystem, because they're not getting supplies, they're not being able to meet the demand. We are already seeing empty shelves, and it's going to last until Christmas. So that's always been a major problem as a supply chain issue. So food is a big problem, and in terms of construction, ultimately it's going to create in the UK, as you might know, we have seen this lorry driver crisis and the petrol crisis. So it's all driving the prices up. There's this panic buying going on, and consumers obviously are paying higher prices. But also at every node on this supply chain, people are kind of panic buying, and they are placing orders months in advance. So that's a big problem, and it's just going to drive all these prices up and create a big problem. Yeah. And the production is not going to keep up with it because it's slow.
Wow, sounds like quite a mess. I guess if you haven't ordered for Christmas by now, you're not going to get it from the sounds of things.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like it. Yeah.
Jazz, great to talk. Thanks so much. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Care. Bye.
Cheers.